If I had a nickel for every time I was doomed by a puppet, I'd have 2 nickels, which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it happened twice, right?
I became a Phineas and Ferb fan rather late into its run. For years, I never gave it a chance, but I listened to my peers sing the theme song on the school bus and discuss events like Spot the Diff, which looking back, had a lot of effort put into it for a one-time marathon. For a while, I only associated the show with the Disney Channel, at a time when the network was selling itself on TV movies and sitcoms for trendy teenage girls, also known as teeny boppers. I apparently missed out on universally renowned cultural zeitgeists like Lemonade Mouth, but everything changed in the wake of the third animated DCOM, Phineas and Ferb Across the Second Dimension. Upon release, the merchandise promoting it was everywhere, and that's what hooked me. All of the characters were sporting dark outfits and facing down a horde of menacing robots. This bright and cheery universe had seemingly taken a dark turn, and I thought it was the coolest thing in the world. Compare promotional materials for the show to the movie, and the difference is night and day. From a distance, this special event might appear to be a parody or even a reboot, but instead it aimed to simply throw a wrench in the structure of the series, and use it to tell what I believe to be its best story. Don't worry, the story of your favorite episode of choice is also good too. Welcome to my segment of a multi-part creator collab dissecting the lore and production of Phineas and Ferb, analyses without a cool acronym.
The name was my idea.
Today, we're going across the second dimension and beyond. When it comes to film adaptations of cartoons, it's usually pretty easy to draw comparisons to an episode or two that were used as direct inspiration. I feel like the concepts behind the movie have a lot in common with Phineas and Ferb Get Busted. Both are what-if stories with serious tones that are subdued by a heavy heaping of comedy. Where they share the most in common becomes clear after the reveal that the episode was all Candace's dream, which actually turns out to have been a part of Perry's dream. Specifically one that preys on the platypus's fear that his host family will discover his double life as a secret agent and he'll have to leave them forever.
Perry has a hat?
This possibility is mentioned in the pilot episode, but this is the first time the audience gets a taste of the consequences Perry would face if his cover was blown. During its first few years on the air, this plot point isn't something that the show was interested in pursuing. The closest we got was the B story in Ready for the Betties, where the boys discover Perry's lair, but Phineas thinks Ferb built it without telling him. Perry is one head turn away from being outed, but the episode never implies that his alter ego is in any real danger. It's all played for laughs, and often not taken very seriously.
Oh, and where are you going, mister? The boys will never find a tree tunnel.
Across the Second Dimension takes it very seriously. There are still lots of jokes, though.
Why is Perry wearing a hat?
We don't have time to explain.
The marketing for this movie was upfront about its premise exploring what would happen if Phineas and Ferb discovered the secret of their beloved pet. However, the movie itself treats this idea like a proper twist, and its opening does an excellent job establishing the tone. Instead of beginning with the cheery theme song, the audience is instead welcomed with the sight of our protagonist chained up and marching to their doom surrounded by a pit of lava.
I'll be honest, Ferb. I'm having a hard time putting a positive spin on this. But I guess that's life, huh? One minute you're having the best day ever, the next you're being fed to a monster the size of a 2-car garage.
Kicking things off in the middle of the story before it formally begins, also known as in media res for people who want to sound smart, is a standard storytelling device. However, I think it works here because this scene is brief, characters like Candace and Perry are kind of obscured to add to the mystery, and it's cleverly lampshaded when the movie catches back up to it.
I'll be honest, Ferb. I'm having a hard time putting a positive spin on this. Blah, 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 2-car garage, etc., etc.
After getting a taste of what's to come, the first 10 minutes or so play out like a regular episode. It is the most standard segment of the film compared to what the show was pumping out around this time, but I admire it for how it's structured. Numerous subtle setups are weaved into scenes that establish the central character arcs. These setups are everywhere in the first act. The locket Phineas and Ferb gave to Perry? That's important. Perry's involuntary reflex? That's important too. Perry pissing on Dr. Doofenshmirtz's couch? Now that is extremely important.
Wait a second, I just realized that was a conscious choice. You peed on my couch.
No, that wasn't enough.
What I like about these highlighted moments is how they're sometimes indistinguishable from gags. The new inventions Carl introduces to Perry all help him get into or out of a jam, but each device is attached to a joke that prevents the exposition from becoming too obvious. When overdone, callbacks can often feel like the same joke is constantly being retold. but spreading them across a feature-length runtime keeps them from becoming stale.
Whoa, deja vu-ish.
The characters go about their everyday business until Perry's malfunctioning rocket car causes the unthinkable to happen. Phineas and Ferb meet Dr. Doofenshmirtz.
I'm Phineas, and this is my brother Ferb.
I'm Dr. Heinz Doofenshmirtz, but my friends call me... I just got in such a funk.
Having the A and B plots finally intersect felt like the culmination of everything that the show had built, but I enjoy how low-key this momentous occasion is. Neither party knows what the other is capable of, so they naturally hit it off because they share a passion for inventing. It's a little odd that the boys don't question the motivations of this stranger, but one, they don't know any better, and two, they interact with strangers every day. The scariest thing about Dr. D is that he's the same height as I am.
I'm 6'2" and I fight a little platypus.
So it's safe to assume that the boys didn't read the sign on the building that they entered. Once the group enters the second dimension is where things start to feel like a movie. This is a world where Doofenshmirtz successfully took over the tri-state area, and it's decked out in a sinister Art Deco aesthetic. Lots of details make this familiar location feel alien. For instance, take the textures. The sky resembles the surface of Saturn, the chaotic geometric shapes that usually decorate the backgrounds are replaced with more controlled patterns and text. The setting also has a touch of medieval flair, implying that technology took a slight step back with Doof in charge. Kind of like the alternate timeline version of him that ruled in the Quantum Boogaloo episode. Just about every scene in the second dimension has a great understanding of color, and is frequently accompanied by an extra touch of lighting to help set the mood of any given scene. I only take issue with one thing design-wise, and that's this couch. It's so disgustingly out of place that it makes me want to cut to an ad break.
Anyone else around here leading a bizarre double life? Put your hand down, Ferb.
One element of Across the Second Dimension that's always been contentious to me is Phineas's characterization when reacting to the discovery that his pet is Agent P.
You're a secret agent?
Prior to this movie, we've only seen him get angry as a quick gag, so it's off-putting to see Phineas show such disdain for Perry while the platypus is working to save his and Ferb's life. The character's constant cheerfulness has always helped balance out the more abrasive and negative cast members, so naturally, flipping that attitude on its head is going to feel like a forced form of drama. I defended Phineas's actions here before, and will continue to, because intentionally or not, I always get a kick out of seeing the Dorito-headed child put on his angry eyes. And the film justifies this behavior by not showing him the entire picture.
I'm sorry, I'm just having trouble processing this right now. So you've discovered your pet is a secret agent. I don't want your pamphlet.
Like I said earlier, the audience knows why Perry never let the boys in on his secret, but Phineas doesn't. And it's something that he admittedly regrets not looking into.
Now I wish I hadn't thrown away that pamphlet.
I'll be honest and say that I think Phineas's character turn could have been handled a little better. No one calls him out for jumping to conclusions and letting his emotions get to him. Not even Ferb, who was kind of an awkward third wheel in this trio. It's not like I expect him to speak up, but it's weird to see Ferb just stand around while his stepbrother is unleashing his full fury upon a small teal mammal. Phineas also decides to forgive Perry at the first sign of danger. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt, because all of the dialogue in that specific scene feels sped up, and it's clear something was cut out, because Second Dimension Buford references a line that Phineas never said to him.
I thought you told us he was just using you as a cover.
I know what I said. I was hurt. But even if it was all an act, he's still a part of the family, and we're not leaving him behind.
Despite its faults, I still admire this attempt to give Phineas a little more emotional range, and it's paid off when he and Perry regain each other's trust and team up to save the day in the third act. I also need to shout out this great subtle moment I just picked up on, where Phineas and Ferb glance at each other after seeing Perry transform back into his domestic disguise. It only lasts a few seconds, but it implies that now that they know Perry's secret, they can never look at him the same way again. Back to what I was saying before I got suddenly depressing. Other evidence suggests that there were deleted scenes, like the DVD special feature called Deleted Scenes. Most of what was thrown out were disposable gags or shots that dragged down the pacing of a reveal and a musical number.
Hey, why is Perry wearing a hat?
2 parallel scenes were cut involving Vanessa Doofenshmirtz and her interdimensional counterpart. They seemingly existed just to get her character in the movie. One detail we missed out on is how Second Dimension Doofenshmirtz banishes every boy she dates, showing Heinz's overprotective nature twisted into being harmful to his daughter's social life. A lot of humor comes from the difference between the character counterparts, but I appreciate how the distinctions between the Doof's personalities and backstories are very subtle.
maybe we're not so much alike. That can be your catchphrase. You're the grumpy one.
The most substantial cut made was an entire song, but instead of talking about just one, let's talk about them all, because this is a soundtrack I'm proud to own. Number 13, Victory Gum.
Victory Gum!
That's it. Number 12, He's Doof. They've done better It's a Small World parodies, and this one comes and goes too quickly to resonate. Number 11, I Walk Away. Olivia Olson performs this somber ditty nicely, although the line that comes right after is more entertaining than the song itself.
I used to think you couldn't spell platypus without us.
Well, you can, but it would just be platup.
Number 10, Baljeet Explanation. It's quite an effective explanation at that, because I know every word by heart. But Baljeet's own criticisms are still valid.
I know, it needs a chorus.
Number 9, Taking Care of Things. Ending the flick with a reggae and calypso track is an inspired choice. I dig the guitars in the backing track, and the extended version's rap segment helps round it out. Number 8, Mysterious Force. While a little on the short side, this didn't deserve to be cut from the final version. The shots of the inaccurately remembered inventions are a little odd, but the instrumental more than makes up for that. Number 7, Gotta Get Gone. Here's a song written for the tie-in video game that recaps the movie's first 2 acts. It's sung from Phineas's point of view and fits right in with the rest of the bunch. It didn't need to go past the 2-minute mark, but it's memorable, and well composed for being buried in a licensed game with surprisingly good writing.
Hey, what? No, wait, it's Evil Robot Factory. You're singing the wrong line. Evil Robot Factory. What is wrong with you guys?
Number 6, Kick It Up a Notch. It's odd to see clips of a movie played right after you finish it, but this song sums up its vibe very well. Phineas really leans into a rock attitude here, and the interludes and verse from Second Dimension Doofenshmirtz are solid touches. Number 5, Robot Riot. The repeated verses cause it to almost overstay its welcome, but the energy and wordplay is some of the soundtrack's best, and it fits the non-stop chaos of its accompanying action sequence. Number 4, Brand New Best Friend. Doof harmonizing and constantly singing over himself makes for a fun listen. It also taught me who Lorenzo Lamas is, so it's got that going for it.
He played me.
Number 3, Summer. Where do we begin? I already know I'm going to get so much flack for these final picks, starting with this. I think the transition into the theme song messes up its flow a bit, but I still understand why this is held in such high regard. Its upbeat lyrics terrifically capture the spirit of the season and the series itself. Number 2, Everything's Better with Perry. The Jackson 5 style presentation makes this number relentlessly cheery, and some of the rhymes are ingenious. I have no clue how they were able to make the scientific name for the platypus fit in so well.
Our ornithorhynchus had enough bring smiles to the both of us.
Number 1, Brand New Reality. A personal favorite that I would say ends too soon, but that's only because its catchiness always leaves me wanting more. Having this relaxed rock tune accompany a mad chase across time and space is an oddly perfect match, making it the track from the film I've listened to more than any other. It also helps that the song perfectly transitions from the end to my favorite sequence.
Oh, great, you caught it. Unlock me.
Every element in the Goosum sacrifice scene has a purpose. The camera takes the viewer all around the arena to heighten the intensity, the somewhat standard and recycled score is amped up and stays at this high level for almost the rest of the runtime, and thanks to the extremely fluid animation, they found a way to make front-facing Phineas actually look good. If anything can renew someone's lost faith in humanity, it's a well-drawn, straight-on, triangle-headed boy. Second Dimension Candace also gets a moment to shine, although Candace herself gets the short end of the stick when it comes to her subplot. I like how she learns the value of staying young, but Candace has to wait around for about 40 minutes, and then becomes a punchline once the bulk of her arc has wrapped up. Not much new happens most of the times we cut back to her, and I wish her role in the climax wasn't reduced to a punchline as it went on.
You can go back to your movie now.
Speaking of the climax, it's the point where the callbacks become gratuitous. At the very least, the movie expects the viewer to go in with some knowledge of a typical episode, but those expectations grow higher when dozens of previous inventions are suddenly called in to combat a swarm of robots, not to mention all of the obscure side characters that also enter the fray. It's a lot for an unfamiliar viewer to accept at once, but it's hardly an issue, as now that it's easily accessible on Disney+, there's not much of a chance that a viewer would go into it completely blind. That is, unless they watch the version someone uploaded in its entirety to Pornhub. Don't ask me how I know about that. As I and others have pointed out, the Sky Portal, character gathering, and score are all reminiscent of one or more of the Avengers films, along with how this is also a CGI fest. The way this technology blends with the 2D animation isn't seamless, but most elements have fitting, simple textures, the shots using it don't last too long, and it almost feels like a necessity due to the enormous scope of some moments. Pretty much everything and everyone is here and accounted for, even all the AWCA animal agents, whose battle with the Normbots kinda reminds me of that old Saturday morning Sonic cartoon. But that's a random one-off comparison. It's not like these franchises have that much in common. And that concludes my tangent. Join me for the next Phineas and Ferb video where I talk at length about my headcanon that Perry the Platypus is intersex. At the end of Across the Second Dimension, the day is saved and all the kids have their minds erased so that Perry can continue to live as the Flynn Fletcher's pet. Among these characters are the Second Dimension Fireside Girls, whose colors accidentally got mixed up with the normal character palettes multiple times. Bringing in Dr. Doofenshmirtz's Amnesia-inator is an easy way to justify breaking all of the show's own rules while not changing the status quo, but the emotional interactions that come from this conclusion make it more bittersweet than disappointing.
You are now, and always have been, a great pet, and a great friend. We're gonna miss you, Agent P.
Despite the film's own attempts to erase it, the influence of an adventure that cracked the foundation of the show wide open would still be felt.
Well, what is summer all about?
Summer is running through the sprinklers in your t-shirt and shoes.
Yeah, we all know the song, but I'm not exactly sure how.
From this point on, the creative team were more comfortable with having higher stakes and grander action sequences. A few episodes would even return to the concept of Perry's identity being jeopardized. Stacy would find out, but that plot thread didn't go anywhere. And the non-canonical Star Wars special has Phineas interact with Perry in ways that suggest something akin to the events of this movie transpired in that universe, just without the reset button being pressed.
This is Perry the Platypus. He used to be our pet until we found out he was secretly an agent for the rebellion. We felt a little betrayed and hurt at first, but bygones be bygones. Now we're good, right?
We did get a proper sequel episode, Tales from the Resistance. I remember initially being disappointed that it didn't retain the movie's scope with the art direction and plot structure, but it's a fun revisiting if you keep your expectations in check. It even references one of the deleted Vanessa scenes, and is secretly the best episode starring Doofenshmirtz's ex-wife Charlene.
Where's her hideout?
Sheesh, she's got a penthouse uptown. You can't miss it. It has Charlene written in bright lights across the top of it.
Charlene's no longer married to Doofenshmirtz penthouse.
I, of course, can't end the video without mentioning Phineas and Ferb's second attempt at a feature, Candace Against the Universe, on Disney+. Since it's yet to premiere, it's hard to say if it'll be a worthy successor. It looks to be a simpler return to form, not trying to top what I've discussed today. However it may turn out, I'm just happy to be getting more Phineas and Ferb in my life. I may have come for the adventure, but I stayed for the characters, I stayed for the songs, and I stayed for the heart. Also, the writing used lots of big words and referenced adult things, and that made me feel smart.
Would you like to trade 2 Sartre for a Mickey?
Alright.
Sucker!
Across the Second Dimension was the result of all these elements playing off each other in near perfect unity. I think some character arcs could have been slightly more fleshed out, but with how dense and fast-paced the plot is, it's not like they had time to do so.
We don't have time to explain.
I could see the pacing turning some people off, because like other elements of the film, such as the animation, it isn't consistently cinematic. It's partially a result of its production being storyboard-driven. That means each act was conceived separately, with different artists bringing their own ideas to the table. This approach is more suited to an 11-minute story than a 78-minute story. So while the overall structure is a little messy, looking at it moment to moment is where its strengths can be found. If they were given a bigger budget and runtime to smooth everything out, I'd say it would easily be worthy of a theatrical release. And in some territories, it did get that treatment. The only flaw I can't forgive is that stupid couch texture. For some reason, when I look at my copy, it gains more detail as I zoom out. It just weirds me out, and it's bad because I don't understand it. Even in a post-Steven Universe the movie world, this remains my favorite TV movie based on a cartoon. This might be the inferior musical, but it's more satisfying, because it leaves no stone in its legacy unturned. If you're watching through the series and for whatever reason think about skipping across the second dimension, just stick around, because this is where Phineas and Ferb proved that they weren't just gonna do it all, but that they could do it all.
Gotta get gone.